Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel for TechStrong Group. Welcome to another TechStrong Learning event. We've got a very special learning event here for you. We've only done a few of these, but our audiences love them. You know, we're part of the Futurum Group now, and one of our sister Futurum companies that we work pretty closely with is Stephen Foskett's Tech Field Day. If you've never been to a Tech Field Day, or seen one on YouTube or on LinkedIn, you should. It's a great concept. It's a great way of learning about products and topics. But what we're doing now is we're taking some of those Tech Field Day sessions and bringing them into a roundtable webinar format where we're going to play some of the videos from that Tech Field Day, but we're also going to do maybe live demos, as in the case I think you'll see today, and a little bit of a deeper dive discussion. But we're going to keep that Tech Field Day feel by, well, part of it is not just having, in this case, our good friends at Platform 9 who presented at Tech Field Day present here today, but also bringing, like in this case, one of the delegates from that Tech Field Day into the discussion, so we could extend the Tech Field Day beyond the four walls of the room it was done in. And I think, as I said, people have really liked it so far. We hope you're going to like it today. Before I jump into introducing our guest today, I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about how you and our audience can help and participate. You know, we use the Big Marker chat system and webinar system, and it's the chat built in. And we like it because there's no plugins or anything. You go right into your browser and boom, it pops up on the URL. However, another reason I like it is the Big Market Communications window, which you'll see for the most of you on the right side of your browser. And the primary way we communicate here is it says chat in black letters for you. It should say chat. It's public or private. We don't use private chat. This isn't Tinder or something like that, and we don't want it. We stay away from private chat. Please use the public chat though, but keep in mind what you put in public chat, not just our all of our attendees can see it, not just our presenters. So again, don't put up anything confidential there. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you're thinking, what your questions are, what your thoughts are, your comments. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small. We may not answer every single thing, you know, bring it up to the chat, to the panel. We may answer it right in chat. We may get to you later, but we appreciate your input and we'll do our best to answer your questions. I always like to say, hey, make sure it works for you. Tell us where you're joining in from today. I still get a kick out of hearing how, you know, people around the world log into my little computer right here in Boca Raton, Florida. Alistair, one of our guest panel members today, is joining us from New Zealand, where it's the middle of the night. So many thanks to him. But anyway, if you want to log in and let us know where you're from there, we appreciate it and love to hear from you. But more importantly, do participate by using chat. As I mentioned, today's presentation is from our friends at Platform 9. And it is reduce operations risk and cut costs with modern private cloud. And I'm looking forward to this because, you know, I was a big private cloud user when cloud first burst on the scene, I guess around 2004, 2005. And, you know, there was a lot of discussion around public cloud versus private cloud. And obviously some of the public cloud providers blew up into the hyperscalers there are today. But private cloud has gone through its own evolution, and I'm looking forward to hearing about this today. In Platform 9, I've been interviewing, covering, and working with Platform 9, my goodness, I'm going to say for at least 7 or 8 or 9 years even. And I've seen it really evolve over those years. So I'm really looking forward to it today. Let me introduce you, though, to our panel members today. First of all, she's the VP of Product at Platform 9, and she's going to be leading our discussion today. It's Madura Muskoski. I hope I got this right. Muskoski. Madura, am I close?
You got that right.
Madura, I told them you were VP of product, but give folks a sense of kind of your journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Alan, thank you for having us here. Hey, folks, I'm Madura Muskoski. I'm co-founder, head of product at Platform 9. And prior to starting Platform 9, I spent almost a decade at VMware, about 8+ years. I started at VMware as my second job after school. I worked at Oracle prior to that. And grew at VMware, worked as part of various key products of VMware that were loved and embraced by enterprises, VMware DRS, VMware vCloud Director. And that's really where myself and my co-founders got a lot of early experience of working on VMware products, but also understanding what are some of the key problems that VMware customers face and what are some of the most valuable features out of the VMware stack that the customers really love. So looking forward to the conversation today.
We're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Also joining us from Platform 9 today, she's the Director of Engineering, Pooja. And Pooja, I hope I get your last name right. Gumre?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Pooja, tell us a little bit about your path.
Sure. So I started with Platform 9 in 2015. And prior to that, I was also working at VMware as part of the vCloud Director team for about 2.5 years. So mostly been in the virtualization space throughout my journey. And then, I think with Platform 9, I got to kind of venture into the Kubernetes space as well. So I kind of lead products on both ends now. Also dabble a little bit on the bare metal side of things. I think right now the focus mainly has been on the private cloud director product that we just launched last year.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you.
Thank you. First of all, kudos to Platform 9. 2 women in senior leadership positions like that. I will tell you, it does my heart good, because with so many webinars, we ask, give us your senior leaders. It'd be nice to have a little diversity. And for a change, we actually have here. And so kudos to Platform 9. Thank you. I mentioned that, continuing the Tech Field Day sort of model, we have a real live delegate who's not from Platform 9, but he is an expert in the area, and he's going to tell us about it. I mentioned he's joining us from New Zealand. Can't thank him enough. Alistair Cook. Hey, Alistair, welcome. And if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, Alan, thank you. I'm a long-term delegate with Tech Field Day, so I've attended just under 30 Tech Field Day events over time. And those have included my introductions to Platform 9 many years ago. Through that time, I've also worked as a VMware trainer and then transitioned to being an AWS trainer. But this year, I made a big leap to be on the inside of the Tech Field Day team. So I'm the event lead for Cloud Field Day, and was really delighted to have Platform 9 as one of the major presenters at my first event, which was Cloud Field Day 21 last year. And really great to see the product coming through in here and the huge progress, the amazing products that Platform 9 have built out over the years.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So we've introduced the audience, we've introduced the topic, introduced our panel, told you how to use chat. Let's get busy. Madura, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. I'm going to share my screen.
I'm sharing Madura if you want to, unless you want to try.
Fantastic. Awesome. So let's kick off, folks. Again, thank you for joining us here. We are very excited to talk to you about Private Cloud Director. It's our flagship product. It is essentially a re-architecture of the virtualization stack that Platform 9 has been running for about 9+ years now, right? So we're going to tell you all about it, also give you a demo. But let's start with the top level question, right? Why Private Cloud Director? Why now? I think it's because enterprises that are using virtualization, that have been using virtualization for decades now, multiple decades, are at a very interesting juncture currently, right? And it's a very exciting time for us at Platform 9. But that interesting juncture is because of some of the dynamics that have shifted in the private cloud vendor landscape, right? With VMware's acquisition of Broadcom, I think there has been a general wave of concern around potentially rising costs, vendor lock-in, as well as the desire or the demand to run your private cloud more like a public cloud, where you have better agility, a better APIs, a more developer-friendly interface. All of these desires are at their prime as well, and so we think that the pressure is intense coming from both sides, but the choices available are not so great. Right. On one end, you have VMware that's been now acquired by Broadcom, and we hear from multiple enterprises about the potential price pressure with respect to rising license costs, etc., not fitting in their budget. On the other end, transition from private cloud to the public cloud makes you part ways with the key benefits or the reasons why you decided to embrace private cloud in the first place, right? Which is you get the cost benefit of running infrastructure in your data centers, and you also get the control and security and compliance of running your applications within the walls of your business. So some of the other options are running OpenStack on your own, doing it DIY, or transitioning everything to Kubernetes, right? So from our perspective, when we look at this spectrum of choices, it's a mixed bag of difficult options to embrace, right? And where is the solution that perfectly fits the needs of that enterprise customer who is looking or who's been running, say, VMware for a couple of decades now, but is looking for a new platform that still gives them all of the enterprise-grade virtualization features, but potentially in a cost-friendly manner and providing a more developer-friendly or agile platform, which is similar to what a public cloud provides. So let's go next. And so we believe Platform 9 is very uniquely qualified for this specific moment, right? We have spent several decades as a founding team at Platform 9 in virtualization. As I said, myself and my co-founders, we started as early engineers at VMware. One of my co-founders started at VMware when it was a small company of about 19, 20 people or so. And then we really got an opportunity to grow with VMware as the company grew. And so Platform 9 is founded by early VMware engineers, right? Myself included. And we have built very deep expertise and understanding of the virtualization space, both from the technical perspective in terms of understanding really the technical features and capabilities, but also knowing the audience, right? Knowing the customers, the users that have really loved virtualization and VMware for many years. We at Platform 9 today have experience with very large scale deployments, right? We have about 20,000 plus hypervisor nodes under Platform 9's management across the globe, and we've been doing this for 9+ years. We have, since leaving VMware, embraced open source with both our virtualization and our Kubernetes products being based off of open source stacks. We've raised more than $100 million in investments and built world-class R&D team and some really great IP innovation that we believe really sets enterprise virtualization platforms at scale for success. And finally, we have one of the best customer success teams in the world. I can definitely proudly say that with confidence. We've been beating our CSAT scores every year, and we've been somewhere around 99.9% at our CSAT scores on a consistent basis. So we think we have something unique and special to really address the current need of the market. Let's go next. Okay, so the product in focus today that we're going to deep dive into is the product is called Private Cloud Director. Private Cloud Director is a complete re-architecture and a modern transformation of our core virtualization stack that Platform 9 has been running now for 9+ years. And Private Cloud Director, we've built it to be primarily a developer-friendly and cost-effective alternative to VMware, right? So developer-friendly and cost-effective private cloud platform that still has all of the enterprise features that you've come to love and rely on as part of your VMware stack. So Private Cloud Director, PCD as we call it, it's enterprise grade. It's built on open source, OpenStack virtualization. It is built primarily to run at scale. So we can cite several examples of our customers that are running, 20,000 plus sites or, thousands of nodes or servers under management using Private Cloud Director today. And lastly, there are two pillars to Private Cloud Director, which is on one end virtualization, and on the second end is containerization with Kubernetes, and we'll talk about that in a bit. It's a completely production-ready product with hypervisor clusters as being the primary concept of the product. You start with a cluster blueprint, which is where you describe your desired state for your hypervisor clusters, kind of similar to VMware clusters, but more defined in a more declarative manner. And then you build your hypervisor clusters based off that blueprint. And those clusters come complete with resource management, what we call automated resource rebalancing or ARR, which is similar to VMware DRS. It's a full clustering technology. It comes with a fully featured software-defined networking with microsegmentation and all of the capabilities similar to VMware NSX. And finally, one of the key themes of Private Cloud Director is that you can utilize any existing enterprise-grade storage integrations, right? So unlike a hyper-converged vendor, our product does not come built in with storage. And it's because we know that there are multiple large-scale enterprise-grade storage deployments that enterprise customers have been using for years. And we want to be the virtualization stack that can provide the best integration with those existing storage platforms and really help you build, best of breed private cloud. Finally, we provide fully integrated experience, including both virtualization and containers, but you have full ability to extend Private Cloud Director using fully fleshed REST APIs that allow you to extend its capabilities in various ways. So let's go next. So being developer friendly is very critical to us, is one of the key tenets of Private Cloud Director. So PCD provides a fully public cloud-like self-service interface. You log in the context of a tenant and a region. And these concepts of multi-tenancy and more, they really let you carve out a large-scale environment where there will be multiple teams located in different time zones, working on data centers that are physically located at different locations. So the multi-tenancy concepts in Private Cloud Director, including domains and regions and tenants, really let you carve out your entire private and cloud environment into various independent pieces that can still collaborate together well. Self-service is a key tenant, so you sign in as either self-service user or administrator, or you can carve out different roles with full RBAC controls. And finally, the Kubernetes platform that we provide, again, the two key tenets of Private Cloud Director are virtualization and Kubernetes. The Kubernetes product that Private Cloud Director offers has a very innovative hosted control plane model where the control plane can be completely hosted in SaaS by Private Cloud Director, or it can be hosted on your premises. again, looking to provide very much more like a public cloud style experience. One thing I want to mention is Private Cloud Director itself provides two deployment models, right? One is a SaaS hosted deployment model where our control plane, management plane is completely hosted in SaaS, as Pooja is sharing. But we also provide a fully self-hosted deployment model where you deploy it completely on your premises in air-gapped environments, if necessary, as some of our customers do for compliance or security reasons. And lastly, we also have a community edition, which is completely free to download and community supported. And this is for those home labs where you may not yet be ready to embrace a private cloud platform, but you just want to test drive it, run it on a small set of infrastructure. Community edition is the platform of choice for you. Let's go next. And so finally, on one end, Private Cloud Director is very developer friendly. That's one of the key tenets, and I will show you in a demo. But at the same time, it is very critical for us that we are absolutely enterprise plug and play ready as a virtualization stack, right? So the stack is targeted to, enable customers that are moving away from their existing virtualization solutions, such as VMware or others. So we come built in with a tool called vJailbreak, and Pooja is going to show a demo of that really soon, which provides complete seamless migration from VMware or other virtualization stacks into Private Cloud Director. In fact, vJailbreak is targeted for migrating from VMware to Private Cloud Director. But then in Private Cloud Director, we want you to continue using all of those enterprise capabilities and features that you have loved and used today, right? With native storage connectivity or integrations with the likes of Pure or Dell EMC, NetApp, HP, Tintri, to integrations with monitoring and logging platforms and ticketing systems, ServiceNow, Splunk, New Relic, Datadog, to load balancer as a service or firewall as a service, F5, Fortinet, right? You name it. There's a very long list of enterprise integrations we support. Finally, backups, site recovery are key requirements of every VMware customer, and we've got that covered with backup integrations with likes of Commvault, Veritas, Twilio, and agent-based backups like Veeam, Cohesity, Rubrik also supported. So that's a quick overview of Private Cloud Director and the key themes and capabilities that it supports. With that, I would love to hand over, Pooja, to you and help us walk through what Private Cloud Director actually looks like, right? So Pooja, over to you.
Yeah.
Can I leap in just before Pooja gets started, because I don't want to break into her flow, but Majira, that previous slide with all of those enterprise integrations, I think is one of the most significant differentiations here for the Private Cloud Director platform, because these are all the brands, all of the tooling that are used by the engineering teams, and that when management decides they need to make some big change without thinking about tooling, this is the place where the engineers who are actually out there building things, operating it over time, these integrations are things that make them enable them to continue to do the jobs the way they did before. You cannot underestimate how important just being able to use the same tooling is over time. Of course, I'm going to get out of Pooja's way, and she's then going to show you the other awesome thing of the actual ability to migrate your existing workloads. But these are the two things that I think are the most important as you're looking at replacing an existing virtualization platform on premises, being able to continue to operate and being able to easily migrate across. This is why I really like what you're doing.
Awesome, Alistair, thank you. I think being flexible with helping you choose your own existing enterprise stack is a very key and important principle for us at Private Cloud Director. And so great to hear that you think it's critical.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just briefly touch upon the agenda for today's session. So I'll start off with the migration tool that Madhura mentioned. It's called vJailbreak, which allows you to migrate from your existing VMware infrastructure to Private Cloud Director. Then I'll talk about the architecture of the product, what are the day-to operations, what are the core platform features. So I'll talk briefly about those and kind of demo you on a live product as well, so you can get a feel for it. And I think the different topics: networking, storage. We'll also talk about Kubernetes and backup towards the end. So let me get straight into it. So obviously, I think as of today, we know that there's this challenge with customers who are tied into VMware, and with the acquisition by Broadcom, if you're seeing licensing changes that are making people look at any open source tools that might be out there where you can migrate to something and have that be done easily without really affecting your application workloads that are running, right? So we've been working on this tool called vjailbreak. It is completely open source, so you can check out the GitHub repo for that as well. So I'll talk about what are the main challenges that kind of led us to develop this tool in the first place. So one challenge is definitely the scale of your VMware environment. Let's say you have thousands of virtual machines that are running, and you can't just completely drop that and switch to a new platform, right? So making that migration path easier is one of the main tenets here. Then also you may have like a wide sprawl of different operating systems which come with different drivers for your storage or networking devices. It may be working with VMware tools today, and how do you manage that while you move from something proprietary like ESX to a KVM based open source hypervisor. Then you may also have applications which may not be able to tolerate that jump from one infra to another. So how do you support both cold or warm kind of migrations without affecting the application's availability? Then there may be some information that it relies on, specifically your IP or MAC address of the VM, right, that you're running. So that, and in addition to any integrations it may have with either your Terraform or Ansible automations, how do you kind of cater to all of that and have like a seamless migration path? So that is what vjailbreak tool helps you with. So this is something that we're trying to integrate as part of the private cloud director product, and like the slide mentions, we have it included as part of the product for no additional cost. But then there are also like paid advanced migration options that you may be interested in, where we'll work with you and kind of deliver that. You can check out the GitHub repo at /platform9./vjailbreak, and it will also have like a README that you can go through with the video. So let me quickly share the.
Pooja, while you're bringing that up, I just want to mention to the audience, over here at Textron Learning, we've been doing a lot of events lately on VMware migration. It's not a secret. With the Broadcom acquisition, VMware licensing changed, and a lot of people are looking at alternatives. Some people are looking at it as a chance to transform to public cloud. Others want to remain on a private cloud, but perhaps not VMware, or something that maybe offers more. And so I'm wondering, and maybe there's more a Madera question, is this driving, I would imagine it's driving a lot of change in the industry, right? People like never before are saying, hey, if I'm going to change, this is the time to do it. Is Platform 9 seeing this? Yeah.
Alan, absolutely. Pooja, you can comment as well, but we're seeing an unprecedented amount of change happening in the industry, unlike anything we've seen in this space over the past couple of decades. This is a one-of-a-kind moment, right? And you really see the desire in these customers to find a vendor that meets their budget, right? Which has been the most difficult challenge for them, but also meets with them and is flexible to understand their needs and embrace them and really build a platform that works for them, right? So this is an unprecedented moment.
Agreed. I'm sorry, Pooja, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks. So I just have like a demo here of an application that is running currently on the vCenter environment. So you can see it's a NoOp commerce application which has two VMs. There's an application server, and then there's a database server that are currently running on an ESX machine. So in the interest of time, I'll skip forward on some of the steps just to save time and show you how the vjailbreak tool really behaves. So this is where the application is running live currently, just so you can see it's running inside a Windows VM. And now we can take a look at the OpenStack environment. So we basically work with any OpenStack environment. So if you have that deployed, this is where you specify all the details for your two environments, the source VMware environment, where you can put in the credentials for your vCenter. And then similarly for OpenStack, there is a openstack.rc file that we're uploading here, which essentially has your control plane URL and any credentials to log into that environment. So this will validate both the connections first and then try to discover your virtual machines. So you can see that it populated a list of virtual machines that are running on your vCenter immediately here. And then you can go and do like a bulk migration if you want, or you can do one at a time. And once you have selected that, the next option is to kind of look at what is the mapping between your storage and networking constructs. So you can map a network on the VMware side with a network on OpenStack. And similarly, if you have a data store being used in vCenter, you can associate that with a volume type in the OpenStack world. So I'll talk more about these OpenStack constructs when we go into the demo of the product. But essentially, you can specify that correlation between the two. And then also there are like some advanced options that you may want to configure. So here you'll see this in terms of the phases, there is an initial data copy that happens of the disk from vCenter to the OpenStack environment. And then secondly, it will do incremental updates because these may be VMs that are actually running. So you may have live updates happening to the disk and you want to carry that forward, right? So you do one initial copy followed by incremental updates to that data while that app is running. And at some point when there are like when there's no delta between the two, we will actually do the cutover of that application from ESX to the KVM hypervisor that we are running. And in that case, you can also control if there's a specific window where you want to have a maintenance window for your application, even though it may be just a blip, you may want to configure that to be just after the copy is done or at a later point. So it kind of allows you to have that kind of flexibility as well. And if you have applications that don't really care about the downtime, then you can do a cold migration too. So we have both of those options there that you can set. And you can see that once let me fast forward a bit. So eventually you'll see the migration completed for one VM here. That's the application one. And then once both of them are up and running here, you can see that the application will now be still live. So you can check the portal, or you can also confirm from the OpenStack control plane side that you can see the VMs here now. And what is interesting is we also carry forward any IP or MAC information. So your application does not really detect that the underlying hypervisor has changed. So it can continue running as is. We also take care of any VMware tools being installed or any Windows driver changes that may be needed. So all of that is taken care of for you. And then you can see that you're able to log into the VM from the OpenStack environment now. So that's essentially the power of wheel jailbreak. It just makes it very straightforward for an admin who has to deal with like thousands of VMs and then just migrate it over. And you can schedule like maintenance windows to kind of map with your migration cycle.
So Pooja, I just want to interject here, and I just want to insert that Alistair and Alan, from our perspective, this tool has been a game changer. I mean, I can tell you just one environment. It's a large-scale IT environment, which was all VMware for the longest time, looking to transition. And we were working with them on their migration plan, and then we showed them this tool. And I can tell you, when they saw live migration happening from existing VMware environment to private cloud director, which private cloud director, by the way, is OpenStack based. So that's what Pooja is showing here. No changes to IP addresses, no changes to VMware tools or any of the drivers required. The VMs just show up and they continue running. They were blown away.
Yeah.
And that's the power.
I'll second that, right? Because I'll tell you that most of the migrations I've seen like this require an army of ProServe. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? You spend more on pro services than you do on the software.
That's right. That's right. I mean, majority of services revenue of the enterprise companies comes through these kinds of migrations. And we think that's just, that's unfair, right? So this is a very key part of our offering, and we have it's just going forward with all forces, right? The next feature we're coming out, just to mention quickly, is a rolling cluster migration where you have your existing vSphere cluster, and we will, just like Kubernetes does rolling upgrades, we will take your ESX hosts down one at a time, move all of the VMs over, then go to the next host. So you have this ESX cluster, and now you will have the PCD cluster in a matter of minutes. So very excited about this.
Yeah, thanks, Madhura. So let me go back to the slides. So now I'll talk about the private cloud director architecture. I'll try and keep it a little brief here on the details. But as you can see, we have Madhura spoke about the two different deployment models. So we have a SaaS hosted version where the control plane will be running in Platform 9 data center, whereas we also have the other option of self-hosted where the customer can run it on their on-premises environment too. So it has all the OpenStack services that form the control plane running on that. And it's essentially running on a Kubernetes cluster in this case. So that's the underlying platform that we use. And in terms of the hypervisor nodes, on the right-hand side, what you see is all your storage backend, everything is local. So there's no security concern with that. So we don't host any of the data plane kind of information, right? So all of that is on premises. And we have some platform line agents running on the hypervisors, which enable us to have like a communication channel back to the control plane. And for each of these services, like for compute, for storage, for networking, we'll have some agents running on your machine, and you can choose to configure some of them for your storage needs or some for your networking gateway or just for running your VM workloads, right? So those are the different roles a host can play. And a co-located set of such servers will basically form from a cluster, which is similar to like a vCenter cluster. It's like one pool of compute resources, basically, where you can have HE and resource rebalancing kind of functionalities too. I'll talk more into details of that in the later slides. And then essentially on top of the virtual machines that you create here, we also have a Kubernetes integration where you can create a cluster out of these virtual machines and run pods within those clusters. So that's essentially how the integrated approach that Madhura spoke about really works. And you can do it all from the same portal with the same kind of SSO or login configurations as well. In addition to just the ease of deployment or getting started with day one, we also have always on assurance. So that is where we kind of bring in the monitoring and alerting kind of aspect. So we have capability for even remotely logging into an environment if there is an issue that the customer is facing, and be able to work with them and try and resolve the issue. So we obviously have that capability which is called the advanced remote support. And for any issues that may occur in the environment, the platform and ops team will basically, in case of a SaaS environment, we will be alerted to that because we have continuous dashboards that we kind of monitor. So it looks something like this, where you can look at CPU, memory, or other metrics. And if there is any call to action, then we basically reach out to the customer and work with them on resolving that as well. So that's definitely
this is very much the sort of core business that Platform 9 has had for these 9 years. Is this we'll run the infrastructure for you, and we'll do it in a very mature and scaled way. And as a customer, I don't need to worry about all the complexity underneath. I don't even need to know that there's OpenStack going on in here. This is not something new for you. This is something you've been making better and better for a long time. The real change in here that I see is that vJailbreak being the on-ramp to this service, because of course changing a hypervisor is hard, as we've discussed.
Yeah, exactly. You said that right. And I think specifically for the SaaS customers, they really appreciate this kind of model where they don't have to worry about some of these issues and if they're not familiar with OpenStack, they can still work with us on getting things resolved in a very timely fashion. And then, I think other than the operations part of it, just having zero disruption upgrades is a huge benefit as well. So we have typically we have one major release every year, and then there are some 3 minor releases or so. We also take care of any security patches for addressing CVEs. That's something that we do on a regular basis for our SaaS customers that will upgrade it, and there's no disruption to their environment. So we can schedule it based on this window that they are comfortable with, and take care of the control plane upgrade as well as data plane upgrade. And if it's on-prem, then obviously they can do the same as well. So we have utilities that help you with that part. So in the interest of time, I'll quickly go into the core platform features, and I'll kind of switch between this and the demo portion of it. So like I said, we are using the KVM hypervisor, which is an open source hypervisor, and it's used at scale by different public cloud vendors as well. So it's kind of well vetted, and it does support all the standard features that you would expect from a hypervisor, similar to ESX. So it does allow you to have overcommitment of CPU or memory resources and kind of use your hypervisor nodes more efficiently. It also allows you to kind of have this capability of a maintenance mode where you can cordon a node for some maintenance, maybe hardware or something that you might be working with on that host, and take it out of the scheduling for any new virtual machine workloads. We also allow migrating a VM in either a live or cold manner, where you may want to evacuate a particular node, or it may be that the node actually failed and you need to kind of make sure that the VMs are now running on a different node in your cluster. Right? So some of these capabilities come out of the box. Then the next one, when we talk about any cluster, it's always hard to set up the cluster at scale, right? So what we have added is the concept of a cluster blueprint. So let me just switch to the demo of the product. So on that, this is how you can log in. So I'm using local credentials, but we also have SSO integration if you want to use that. As soon as you log in, you get a good view of what the quota utilization is for different compute, storage, and networking elements in your environment. And on the top right here, you'll also see that we support having a multi-region deployment, which means you can have different data centers accessed from the same portal. And also we support multi-tenancy. So you can have different tenants here. I have like 4, and then I'm currently logged into the service tenant. So I see the usage for that. And then essentially what I was referring to in the cluster blueprint, this is where you can specify a template for your blueprint. So for example, you can say that I want to have VMHA when a node fails, you basically detect that and recover the VMs on other hosts using cold migration. And then similarly, if you want to have a more even distribution of workloads on your host, then you can choose to enable automatic resource rebalancing. So there are 2 options where you can either choose to distribute the workloads or consolidate them, and you can do it at different frequencies. Then there is also networking related information here, where you can configure a custom DNS domain name if you want. In this case, I've already added some hypervisors, so some of these options are not editable, but essentially you can use distributed routing at scale, and then also have overlay networks using the virtual networking technology here. And there are different options. You can do VLAN based, VXLAN based, Geneve based networks here to enable self-service of networks. When you're adding different hypervisors now, you may have differences in terms of the NIC configuration on them. So we allow you to create different network configurations where you can specify that these are the 3 interfaces, for example, on my host, and logically they map to a network that may be common across them, but I can reuse, for in this case, the TAN1 and Data1 networks, for example, are available on different interfaces. I could configure that here. And then there are some system traffic options where you can control what NIC should be used for what sort of traffic. Like for VM console or image library, you can dedicate specific interfaces for that. And then lastly, on the storage front, like Madhura spoke about, we have integrations with different storage vendors. So you can add different drivers here to use with your virtual machines. And as soon as you pick one of these drivers, it will allow you to kind of configure different options for that. So this is something that you set up when you first get onboarded, like you configure this one time, and there are like some optional configurations here too that you can supply. And once that is done, adding a new host is very straightforward. So essentially, when you bring in your own bare metal servers, all you need to do is run these 2 commands. The first one is just to download this cloud CTL CLI tool. And once you download it, you run this one command, cloudctl prep node, which will ask you for information about your control plane URL, your username, password, and what region and tenant you have access to. And once that is done, you'll see that the host would show up in the environment here, where you can now start communicating with that host. And then the first step that you would do is you would assign certain roles to those hosts. So in this case, I talked about like different configs. So I have 4 hosts that have their own configuration, config 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I have authorized all of them as hypervisor nodes. And then I have one node that is acting as an image library node. So images, you can basically relate that to a vSphere template. So it is just something that you can use to create a VM using, right? So that's a image template. And then secondly, for persistent storage, whatever backends you may have configured in the blueprint, you can multi-select those here. So you can have LVM, NFS, and NetApp, a combination of those enabled here. So it's a like very straightforward thing to do. When you just have to bring in one new hypervisor, you can get started with that very easily. And it will show you all the information like resource utilization and IP addresses, to kind of make it easier. There's some more additional details in terms of the operating system and CPU flags, etc., that it supports. So you can glance over that here. Then we also have this.
Before you go into aggregates, I just want to highlight a couple of things, right? Like, so one of our focus areas here was VMware customers are very used to the clustering concept, the VMware vSphere cluster with DRS, with the automated migrations and rebalancing, etc. And we know and understand why it's so critical for VMware customers. And so we have that exact same concept of hypervisor clustering as a pillar of PCD, private cloud director, right? But if you see what Pooja just did, and it may not have been apparent, in that one single cluster blueprint, not only did you capture the entire configuration of how your cluster should look like, including the fact that it should be VMware HA enabled, should be or VMware style, high availability enabled, it should be automatic rebalancing enabled, which is similar to DRS, but you also specified configuration for fully defined software-defined networking, right? So this is something you typically have to do with a VMware environment by separately configuring NSX, which historically at least has been fairly complex to do. We have completely simplified the configuration of it, right? So there is several advanced networking parameters that you can configure, but the setup process is just, we think it's beautifully simple here.
Yeah. Thanks for adding that, Madhura. And I think we'll get more into the details of networking. So I'll spend less time on the slides so I can walk through the product as well. But going back to the infrastructure, then you also have this capability to define multiple host aggregates within your environment. So you can, within a cluster, you can have a set of servers that may belong to a specific OS, or let's say you have different hardware or performance characteristics on those that you want to group your VMs by. Then you can create an aggregate, which is basically a group of hosts, and then you can have certain metadata here. One use case could also be, let's say you have some licensing for Oracle, so you can add that metadata here, and then when you're deploying a VM that needs Oracle license, you basically have it get provisioned on this host aggregate, right? So that's a very useful capability to kind of tie into your virtual machine deployment workflow. And then essentially when you go into deployment of a VM, we've made that pretty simple here. So you can, like I said, you can have different images uploaded onto your control plane. These are templates. And you can also do the same using persistent volumes. So you can have some pre-created ones or create a new one. This is where I have 2 images uploaded currently. So I can just pick one, give it a flavor. Flavor is essentially a type for your instance, which dictates how much CPU, RAM, and disk you are going to configure for this VM. So you can pick whatever specifications here. And then when it comes to networking, you can add multiple next to the VM. So you just select those here, give your VM a name, and then you can optionally add a SSH key if you want, or if your image has a default password, you could use that, or enable Cloud Init, which will allow you to customize certain things on the first boot of the VM. We also have this capability of adding a server group, which essentially allows you to define So I can show that here. Affinity or anti-affinity policy for your VMs. So essentially, you can see that all these VMs should be placed on the same server, or they should be on mutually exclusive servers, right? So those are the kind of options that you get as part of the virtual machine deployment.
Yet another feature, Pooja, if I may say, loved by VMware users, right? Alistair, you will remember and know the affinity anti-affinity rules can sometimes get pretty hairy and complex, right? But are very critical to deploying enterprise workloads. So
yeah, and I like that you have the server aggregate there, so I don't have to create a separate cluster because I need separate licensing, or I need to differentiate between the hosts I have underneath. That kind of feature set that all happens within that same blueprint that's defining the cluster. So it's not yet another place where I have to redefine everything.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
exactly. So this is where for your Oracle licensing, like you said, Alistair, when you need a separate cluster, you can satisfy that use case completely using aggregates. So that's the key purpose.
Yeah. And then going into the SDN one, in the blueprint section, I showed that we have different segmentation technologies that we support. So we have VLAN, VXLAN, and Geneve. And then you also have this capability of defining virtual networks for the self-service users, right? And now once you have two isolated networks, you can basically kind of connect them together using a virtual router as well. And then once you have an external network attached to a router, you can configure a public IP for your VMs, which will essentially map into the private IP that it comes up with when you initially create it. So it allows you to have basically both north-south or east-west traffic flow that way. We also support with high-performance applications. You may need SRIV or IPv6 support. So that's also available out of the box in the product. So if you look at the networking piece, this is how you would create a network. So if an admin has to create a network, they essentially pick one of the labels that we specified in the blueprints. If you recall, there's a data one logical network that you have here, and then you can do it either as a flat network, VLAN, or VXLAN based network. And this also allows you to kind of configure the subnet for it, where you can specify the network CIDR, give it a gateway if you need, any allocation pools, DNS name server, anything that you want to customize, and then you create a network as an admin. Similarly, there is this virtual networks where any self-service user can come in. In this case, they're not giving any information pertaining to the physical infrastructure, as that's already configured in the blueprint. So you can just simply go in here and create the subnet with whatever CIDR you need, IPv4 or IPv6, and get going with that. It will allocate something that was configured from the range that you have here specified in the blueprint. So if you pick a VLAN-based network, it will pick one of the IDs from this range, essentially. Then when it comes to routers, you basically can define a router and add different interfaces. In this case, I've added two subnets. So VMs in both of these subnets will be able to talk to each other via this virtual router. And essentially, you can also have public IPs configured. One thing I will call out is also the security group functionality, which allows you to have different inbound and outbound rules configured. So you can define what kind of traffic should be allowed on what protocol, what ports, and you can customize that as per your needs. So you can define a TCP, UDP, ICMP rule, and then for each of them you can specify a port range or a CIDR that you want to allow that traffic for. So when you create a VM, you can associate different security groups for different NICs that you have on it. So this
and
is
that's
also
the same concept as security groups and self-service networking on public cloud. So getting that's the cloud part of public cloud director, really.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's security is a very important aspect of networking. So something that you'll definitely need. And in addition to this security group feature, we also have some advanced capabilities like DNS as a service or load balancing as a service. I don't have that to demo in the UI currently, but this is something that's available from the backend. Then, switching back to So virtual machines, I did kind of briefly touch upon this. The three elements being the virtual machine, and the images that you use. Again, those could be created as golden images. So here, if you look at the images, I have two here, but it's very straightforward to upload a new image here. So you can just download some QCOW2 and then upload it right from your browser. You can just specify what is the disk format. So we do support different formats here that you can choose to go with. Or you can also do it from the CLI if you prefer that for like any larger images, which may be taking a lot more time to upload. So both of these options are available in the UI. And then lastly, on the block storage front, like I said, there are different vendors that we work with, and they could support different protocols. So you can choose to enable that as well. Going into the multi-tenancy part, I'll just quickly show that the tenant UI. So here you can create different tenants and you can manage quotas for each of these tenants separately. So you can define that at a tenant level, as well as you can define permissions for certain users where they may have different kinds of accesses. So if I look at my user, I may have admin roles on some tenants versus self-service role on some other tenants, right? So that's the kind of flexibility you get. And then you can also do the same thing using any enterprise SSO. So we have different integrations available with it. You could be using Google, Okta, OneLogin, right? So we work with different SSO providers. Anything that supports SAML2 protocol, essentially, you can configure that here and then log in using that. Then there's this feature for using orchestration. So you can define a heat stack in this from the UI. Again, you can just upload a YAML file, which will have different resources for creating a VM network, and you can kind of put that all into one YAML file that you can deploy from the wizard here. And then if there are any options that you want to customize, you can specify the stack parameters right here. Right, so that's more.
That's the sort of functionality where if I'm a large distributed organization, I've got a lot of branches, and I want the same things, same new application to deploy to all of them. This is where I'll be using these orchestration features.
That's right. So this is really that app catalog kind of capability, the VApp construct. And Alistair, we're actually looking to take this forward one step ahead. So in the upcoming April release of the product, we're going to add ability to do full orchestration using Heat, but also with Terraform, right? And aligning with modern tooling that developers use today to automate their application definitions, deployments, etc.
Right, and there's also this Terraform OpenStack provider that's open source, and you could use that as well. With the one that I just showed, we also have auto scaling support, so you can scale your application based on the CPU consumption. Then I spoke about these two features earlier, so I'll skip on that part. Then next, I'll briefly just talk about the Kubernetes hosted control plane. So what we have done here, so if you look at a typical on-premises Kubernetes, then you'll see that there's a set of control plane nodes which run the Kubernetes services. And then there is a worker node group, which will basically run your actual containers, right? So this kind of is an additional cost if somebody is running Kubernetes this way. So what we have done with Private Cloud Director is we take care of the control plane. So for you, so it's 100% managed control plane. That means that the user is only responsible for bringing in the worker nodes that run your actual applications. So you save on the cost for hosting these control planes, as well as any infrastructure or any people cost associated with that, right? So every cluster with Kubernetes will need at least 3 or 5 nodes. So if you look at it at a scale of maybe 100 or 1,000 clusters, then that can be a significant cost, right? So with this architecture where we have, so let's say I have like 12 control plane nodes, you're going from that to a 0 control plane node model, where Platform 9 will take care of all the other things, including the observability part. And if you look at the dollar savings there, it as you scale in the last row, you can see if it's a 90 cluster environment, then you're essentially getting infra savings of up to 500K in that ballpark. So this could be a huge benefit of running both, and also the integrated approach where you can run VMs and containers in the same platform is a huge plus as well. But yeah,
Guys, we're running up against the hour.
yeah, sure.
I'd rather sit here and watch this and learn all day. But we've got to be mindful of people's time. For people who are watching this, and sometimes audiences are involved. Sometimes they just sit and take it in. But if they want to contact Platform 9, they're looking at migration, right, from VMware. They're looking at private cloud from public cloud. What's their best runway? Should they just go to platform9.com? What would you have them do?
Yeah, the best way to do is go to platform9.com, and there's a contact us form, and send us a note, and you will get a response, within 8 hours or so. And another way is to reach out to us at info@platform9.com as well.
Absolutely. Guys, we're at the top of the hour. Platform 9, folks, thank you so much for an immersive experience here, understanding what's going on. It truly is amazing. A lot of us have spent our whole careers in a VMware era. And all of a sudden the rocks are shifting, the sands are shifting, and it's a tremendous opportunity and time to explore what's new and what's the latest. And the Platform 9 private cloud offer is state of the art. And Alistair, I'll give you the last word because you were nice enough to sit in here in the middle of your night. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the sun's just coming up here in New Zealand, and it's definitely the collection of elements here of ease of management, use of your existing enterprise tools, and then that automated migration. These are key elements as you're looking to replace your VMware environment with something else, something more cost effective. So I continue to be impressed with what Platform 9 has built, and I just love the solution.
Love it. I want to remind everyone, if you'd like to see the full video of the Platform 9 Tech Field Day, that's available on the Tech Field Day YouTube site. It might also be on the techstrong.tv site.
Yeah.
And
we're very much partnered together with you guys.
Yeah, we could see it there. Thank you all for attending. Again, many, many thanks to Platform 9 and Alistair, and to Tech Field Day. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you at another TechStrong event soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.